Welcome to our 9 Minutes Enough, a Region 9 podcast. And this week we're going to talk about digital citizenship.
It's a great time to talk about it. Digital Citizenship Week is coming up October 20th through the 24th. Yeah. But, I think it's really important for us to think about digital citizenship. That is hard to say.
It's a hard word to say.
More than just 1 week of a year. I think it's something we've got to think about and work on all year long.
Yeah, absolutely. It's 1 week where we can kind of harp on it. But there's never going to be a day where we're not using computers, where kids aren't connected to something. And so that's a really important topic to talk about every day.
For sure. And I think as adults, we have to think about our own use of digital resources, whatever that may be and what that looks like for us. I know I'm guilty as anybody of, succumbing to the scroll, that doom scroll in the evenings. So it's really all about balance for me. Like, I've got to figure out good ways to keep that in perspective and use it wisely. And so what are some of the things that you do to kind of help yourself with that balance?
Yeah, I think it's crazy because I think these things that they want you to use, but even those companies who make the phones and the iPads, they are starting to build in products for you to help you kind of combat that as well. And so just setting limits on specific apps. So I try to only spend 5 minutes on certain social media apps at a time. How many times I click extend, I don't want to say. But yeah, I think it's really important to kind of set those guardrails for yourself.
And I've tried that as well. I have used some of the features. I'm a fairly recent convert to the old Apple world. And so I've been using some of those features. But yeah, I have found it's really easy just to say, ignore for today. I just ignore it really easily. So I haven't found a good solution yet for that piece.
I think what works best for my family is we have locations where we have them. So when our kids get home from school, they have their Chromebooks from school, they put them in their charging spot in the living room. So it's not ever in their bedroom. Cell phone usage is really limited after school. Again, we don't let our kids have them in their bedrooms. They're younger for sure. They're not high school age, but it's setting those where when I'm in this location, I don't even expect to have the device.
Yeah, I think that's a really big piece of it. It's just the physical proximity of it.
Yeah.
It's really interesting to read some of the research that just the proximity, the closeness of those phones can play a role in attention span and engagement, things like that. I know it isn't necessarily something we thought about earlier, but a lot of phone bans have obviously taken place.
Absolutely.
And I'm hearing some really positive things about the attention span and the engagement from kids because those are not part of their daily routine anymore. So I think that's really encouraging.
It's just walking through the hallways where they're actually looking each other in the eye and they're talking and maybe not walking into walls so much.
It happens, right? To the very best of us. I think as teachers in our schools, we have to think about this digital citizenship in a couple of different ways as well. We've got just last month, the Uvalde School District closed for a week because of a ransomware attack. So we have to think about the privacy and security of our schools in a different way. What does it look like to be a good digital citizen with our school resources? And so I think it's paying attention to what we click on and really taking a good look at is this something legit or not. We've got to make sure that we're keeping that data safe. And when we think about it, our schools are full of data, and those kids' data is so important. So it's also about teaching our kids to be safe with those things, having strong passwords and making sure that they're protected, that we're using technology resources that are safe and not just clicking on anything that looks cool.
For sure. And I would say as an ex technology director, just recognizing that when these people who are tasked with keeping your data safe and secure, recognizing they're not doing things to make your life harder, even though it is going to make your life harder. None of us like the MFA, none of us like all the stuff that we have to go through, but it's really important that we follow those guidelines, those procedures to keep not just ourselves safe, but we are, as educators, we're accessing student information all the time and making sure that we're doing right by our kids by doing that stuff as well.
Absolutely. Sure. And I think that's what we have to keep in mind. We're doing it for a reason, right? To keep everybody safe. I think there's also been kind of an interesting shift in the way digital resources are being used in the classroom in general. And it's really encouraging, I think. I think it's a shift away from technology all the time. Technology when it is important and when it matters. And I think that shift is part of this. It's how do we balance what we're doing in our classrooms to build relationships first, to build engagement first, and then use that technology as a tool. Is that what you're seeing?
I think we can always, so many things in life can kind of go back to COVID. And I think about if you remember, we pushed, everyone had to and that's all they didn't have any other option. And I think when I was in the public education area, when we came back from that, there was a bunch of kickback and just like exhaustion from kids and from staff just staring at a screen all day. And so it's nice that we recognize how beneficial it is, but also the drawbacks on that.
Yeah.
And so I think now we're saying, hey, we want to use it to improve education, to make our access to information easier, but it's not the teachers, not the be all end all. And there's, especially like math, there's so many areas where sometimes it's just simple and easy to use pencil and paper.
Yeah, and I think that's a good way for our kids to see and to understand that there is a balance, because they're going to be out on their own. So kind of speaking as a parent at this point, you know, I've got kids who are in college now, and they're on their own to figure out what that looks like. And so if in school they see that they can use both kinds of things, pencil, paper, and digital tasks, I think that just sets them up to be well-rounded, to be better able to handle those kinds of, you know, task load.
Yeah, and they can adapt to whatever situation, because you don't know what position you're going to be in, what role you're going to be in that's going to require different, you know,
different skills. And I think that critical thinking skill that everybody is so concerned with right now because of AI, and totally understandable. I think by shifting and keeping that kind of balance between the two kinds of tasks helps keep that critical thinking first and foremost. Yeah. Because that's the key, and then how can I do this best? And so I
think just remembering that, like, you are the ultimate brain in the AI situation. You know, they are there to move quickly, but you're there to move deeply. I guess. I
actually read an article this morning about a high school student who was concerned about the loss of critical thinking among their peers, and I thought that was a really interesting perspective, that they recognize that it's not the be all end all either. So
I mean, it's the same way where, like, you know, it's so funny. We'll be in our family, and for some reason, someone doesn't have their phone. Yeah. And all of a sudden, they're the judge of the family. That why is everybody else on their phone? Yeah. And so it's just like the moments where you actually put yours down and you look up and see the world around you, like, oh no, like, is that me all the time? Yeah. And so it's just nice to recognize.
It can be very eye-opening, I think. Yeah. And like I say, I think our kids are getting to see that in the classroom right now, with the phones being away and things like that.
It almost makes you want to go back as a teacher and experience it, right?
I mean, it would be interesting to see the difference, because
maybe sub for a day just to see what it's like.
Just to see what it's like. You know, there are times that it would be really interesting to see what it is like.
For sure. Yeah.
I think that kind of brings about, you know, just our own thing, still about our own kids. You know, you mentioned having physical location for your devices. Yeah. But it really is about teaching them those lessons. Like, why do we do it this way? Why is it important to have balance? What skills are we missing when we're not using when we are using our phones? What are we using when we are using our devices? Yeah. I think we really have to kind of teach those lessons pretty explicitly. So I know with Digital Citizenship Week, we are going to put that in our information in our newsletter. So our last newsletter will have all those kind of resources for teachers, because there's some really good places out there that, yes, it's kind of ironic that it's online to find resources for digital citizenship. There you go. But there's some really good resources that we have available now, and I think it's important that we explicitly teach our kids how to act online, you know, how to behave, how to use the technology responsibly and ethically. So
I think it's really important that, like, on top of the resources that we want to share, it's really important for the listener to reach out to their admin team, to their technology staff, and say, like, how are you keeping us safe? What tools should I be using? Because as I talk with teachers, you know, even when I was in that role, there's always new staff that come in that you forget to train on how to use these tools wisely. And I think if they utilize them well, it'll do a really good job in helping your kids stay safe.
Well, I think we're all very guilty of, like, hearing about something that's really cool, and we just log on and we don't think anything about what the backside of that might look like, whether or not it does have safeguards in place for us, for our data, for our schools, for our kids. All those different pieces can really play a role. So I think have that conversation of what are we using, what's allowed, what's not allowed, and how are we keeping everybody safe. I think those are some great conversations to have.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, guess what?
We are up against it. We did it.
We did it in 9 minutes or less. We're good at that. So thank you guys so much for joining us today, and we will see you again next time.
Bye.